Awesome. Thank you so much. And Paige, I'm an alcoholic, and I honestly am so grateful to be here with you guys today. It's real cool to see friends from like just all over the world, and I'm just it's just a reminder just how blessed we are to have this program, to have this way of life, and even to have this technology that connects us in the fellowship of the Spirit. So no, I'm just full of gratitude today. And so yeah, Steve asked me if I could come and fill in, and he's like, what do you want to talk on? And just what came to mind was step 10. And so we'll talk on step 10. Now, I want you to know when I got here, step 10 was not good news. I don't know about you guys, but like when I got here, I was kind of hoping I could do like a little bit. And then I could do what I like to call that crock pot sobriety, where I could set it and forget it. You know what I mean? Work a set of steps and leave it. Turns out I am an alcoholic, and turns out crock pot sobriety does not work for me. What is cooking in that crock pot when I set it and leave it is the mental obsession. What's cooking in that crock pot is suicidal ideation. What's cooking in that crock pot is not good things. So what I've learned is that I can't have crock pot sobriety. What I got to have is stir fry sobriety. And if somebody's a chef, I know I'm not. Like I put frozen meals in the microwave. That's my cooking. So you let me know if I'm wrong. But what I got to do is I got to be up there and in that stir fry, in that sobriety, in those spiritual actions, working it every single day. And man, when I do that, my life changes. And so one of the things I like to do is I like to hop around the big book. And so if you don't mind, well, join me. We'll be on page 84. And we'll be on the middle of, and again, don't worry, if you don't have your book to hand, I'll read it, because I'll do that, here for it. So where we're at is on page 84, the middle of the paragraph. This thought brings us to step 10. And so the thought that we're talking about is those step 9 promises. And oh, we love those in AA. Don't we love them in 12 step? We'll read them, we'll do that. And yeah, those 9 step promises. Now there are promises all over this book. And we're going to read some 10 step promises, and those are powerful. But the 9 step promises, they happen when we are partway through making our amends. So this thought of us continuing to go out and set right our wrongs, making our amends, cleaning up the wreckage of our past, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests. Now, whenever I see the word suggests, I might want to point out, it's a suggestion, right? Oh, awesome, thank you. It's a suggestion. But I might point out that we don't have alternative suggestions. If I'm like, I would like a plan B suggestions. I would like a diet 12-step suggestion, a little suggestion, a different one. We don't have alternatives. So nobody will make you do it, but we don't got another way to go. So it suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. And you know what's annoying about that? Is when I got here, it said continue. When I was a year sober, it said continue. When I was 5 years sober, it said continue. When I was 10 years sober, it said continue. When I opened the book today, it said continue. Man, I am never done. I got to keep doing this. And when I work with my sponsees and we go through the book, and I like to go line by line, as you guys might have gathered, because we're going line by line. But as I go through the book with my sponsees line by line, every single time it says way of life, way of living, way of life, I'm like, hey, just so you know, we're never going to be done this. It is a way of life. And I've got to continue this work and these actions. And so when it says continue to take personal inventory, where did I learn to do that? Well, where I learned to take personal inventory was ultimately in that 4th step, right? In resentments, I learned to set who I was mad at, why I was mad, write down where it affected me, and to find where I was wrong, where I was at fault. And in fears, I learned to set pen to paper. What is the fear? Why do I have it? How has me relying on me set me up in a position to be hurt with this fear? And writing on how relying on the God of my understanding can overcome that fear. That's where I learned in step 4. And then what I learned was that an inventory, if I keep it to myself, it says in the 5th step, a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. that means it's not good enough. Like, oh, I'm gonna get drunk over me coming up with my own ideas, right? And so I've got to share that with others. And where I learned to do that was in step 5. And I see these defects of character, and man, I've learned I can't overcome them on my own power. And how do I get free of them? 6 and 7. And then when it says, and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along, where did I learn to set right my mistakes? Steps 8 and step 9. And so what we see is that process of steps 4 through 9 becomes this way of living, becomes this way that I carry myself and I bring into the world and into my life. And I have to continue. Then the inventory that I did last week doesn't do me any good today. Just like the frozen mac and cheese that I microwaved yesterday. Now we're just getting a real lens into my sort of culinary proclivities. But my frozen mac and cheese that I nuked up yesterday does not keep me full today. I need to continue to grow. So it says we vigorously, and that means with some emphasis, with some enthusiasm, with some effort, commence this, oh man, there it is, way of living. Man, at some point, I was hoping I could just be done. I was hoping I'd get a set of laurels that I could rest upon. We'll read about those. This way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. And I want to emphasize that Spirit is capitalized. And so one of the things is this is one of those places we see in the 5th step. That's where we begin to have a spiritual experience. But that spiritual experience, that spiritual awakening is growing. I'm entering that world of the Spirit. Another way to say it is that I am entering that 4th dimension of existence. And then it says our next function is to grow. And again, grow, I'm not done. You know, it's funny, I'll emphasize all of this with my sponsees and even myself. And don't we all have those moments and like, oh man, I got to keep doing it. Yeah. But I've got to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And see, in the 3rd step, what I learned is that I was fired from the management position of my life. In step 1, I came to realize that my life was unmanageable. I was the one managing it. I always say is if I had managed anything, and I mean anything, as poorly as I manage my life, I ought to be fired. Right? If I managed a Blockbuster as poorly as I manage my life, I ought to be fired. And I use Blockbuster because there's real no stakes. You know, no one's expecting me to turn that ship around, you know, with Blockbuster. But it's real low stakes. But with me, like I manage my life into an unmanageable position. And an unmanageable position is one where I am going to drink again, no matter how much I want to, no matter how much I need to stay sober, I will drink again. And in step 2, what I'm given is the idea of a new manager, one that can actively work in my life. And I don't know this yet, but I see it working in yours. I see that you're happy and you're sober at the same time. I see that you wake up in the morning on a Monday and you don't want to kill yourself. You have this way of life that works for you. Maybe it could work for me if I did what you did. And in the 3rd step, I get that formal pink slip, or if you live in the UK, it's a P45. You get formally fired from the management position of my life. And I get this new employer. And I go out from that 3rd step, it's signing this employment contract. I'm going and I am going to work for God. And so when I get my new employment contract, I get my new, like, all right, here's the job. I'm getting real excited. What am I going to do? Is it going to be something cool and exciting? And it's like, girl, no, it's a house cleaning. I don't know if you saw that house. It is a mess. We got to clean that up, right? And then I'm like, okay, I clean the house. I share my 5th step. All right, I'm in step 6. Do I get a promotion? Sort of. I get moved to the willingness department. See, I'm not in defect removal. I'm in willingness. My job is to be willing to have these things gone. And then I do my 6 and 7. And then I get to step 8. And I'm like, all right, do I get a promotion? Yeah, no, I'm still in willingness, right? Step 8, it's all about becoming willing to set right these wrongs. But now it's when we get relocated into a whole nother department. So this is a callback, all of that to say that this is a callback to my 3rd step decision. I'm working for God. I'm showing up and living my life in the way that God would have me. And goodness, I don't always know what that is. But when it says our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So now I've been moved to the understanding and effectiveness portion of the program. And what I'm trying to grow an understanding of and effectiveness in is of God's will for me. That's what I'm trying to do. Because now I've entered the world of the Spirit. I've begun to enter that fourth dimension, really begin to have that spiritual awakening. And then it gives us directions. And the first direction for step 10 is continue to watch. And you guys might have gathered by how all over the talk has been for we're a paragraph in. I've been all over the place, bouncing around through steps and steps. You might gather that I do not have a lot of focus. You might have gathered that I've got some attentional issues. You might have gathered that I'm sort of the human being that's like, squirrel, tangent, I'm off, wee, right? That continue to watch, man, that is the toughest direction for me. And I don't know if your experience is like my experience, but I would go through my life absolutely unmindful, absolutely unaware of what was going on. Heck, it wasn't even until I sat down to do my fourth step that I could really say, oh, yeah, that's been bothering me. Oh, yeah, that's what that fear was. Oh, yeah, that. Because I'm blind to it. I'm asleep to that which I then become awakened to as I do this work. So when it says continue to watch, man, I'm not good at that. That has been the most difficult thing for me. And so I just want to share with you my experience as somebody who struggles with focus. How do I watch? Well, and I want you guys to know, like, I am a big book gal. Like, I love the big book. The big book has brought my life to a place where I could have never imagined. I love it. But I am going to quote the 12 and 12, like a rebel, and probably misquote. It's not going to be verbatim. So, I mean, if you have inventory to write about that, we'll show you how. It'll be great. But in the 12 and 12, it talks about how, hi guys, it talks about how when prayer, meditation, and inventory are logically interwoven and intertwined, it creates an unshakable foundation. And that's what I need. I need that foundation that is unshakable. It's a reminder for me, off on a tangent again, look at me go. The step 1, 2, 3 is not my foundation. My foundation is all 12 steps as a way of life. And if I do not have all 12 steps as a way of life, I might not have a foundation, right? I will drink again. I will relapse. And so what has happened for me? How do I get attention? Well, or how do I have focused attention? Not how do I get attention, because that's a whole other set of inventory. You know what I mean? But how do I direct my attention? How do I be able to watch? And so what my experience has been for me is that daily seated meditation practice where I sit in silence and I sit watching for the presence of God. And I still my thoughts. And I do that in the morning and I do that at night. And that allows me to have a quieter, and I want you to know, it didn't happen because I just did it once. I didn't do a 20-minute meditation once a week and I'm cured. I'm able to focus and my thoughts are quiet. My moods are better and everything's great. No, I got to do this every day, right? Stir fry. I got to be in it and doing it every single day. And so what that looks like for me is I meditate. You know, for me, it's usually between 20 to 30 minutes in the morning, 10 to 20 minutes in the evening, and sometimes it's longer. I sit and I still that mind and I await the presence of God. And I do that every day. And the result of doing that every day has allowed my focus to be a little bit better. I mean, there's been other things that have been absolutely incredible and wonderful. And my life has changed in ways that I absolutely never thought possible. Absolutely. But that meditation helps me to be more able to watch. Now, one of the things, I'm going to bounce around this big book a little bit. We're going to be bouncing around, so please bear with me. When we go to, let's pop over, and I mean, you don't have to necessarily, but on step 11 on page 88, And really starting at the bottom of 87, we constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. Again, that sounds like a third step proposition to me, but it says, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. And we'll see that that is a step 11 direction, but we're going to see that that direction is also mirrored in step 10. In fact, and I am so sorry, Brett, you're going to have to bounce around again. On page 85, when we go almost across the page, it says every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. So that same direction that we see in step 10 is that same direction we see in step 11 as we go throughout the day. And one of the most powerful things that I can do is I can pray. So I can have that daily seated meditation. I can have that daily structured prayer as I start my day and as I end my day, but as I go throughout my day to pray. So before I hop on a big book compendium meeting, I can pray. God, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. As I go out to the world, maybe we're going to the grocery store, shopping mall. So maybe we're shopping on Amazon. Probably good to pray before we do that. Maybe that's just me. But I can say the prayer, God, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Before I deal with family, before I work with sponsees, before I show up to anywhere in my life, God, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. And I want you to know one of my favorite things to do is to invite God with me. See, God's always there. I'm not inviting God so God shows up. You know, if I didn't invite God to this meeting today, I want you to know God would still be here. God is still here. God is in the here and now. It is here and now that he can be found. God is here. But the problem is, as you guys have figured, my attention is not. My attention is all over the place. And so what happens for me is when I invite God and then I watch for God, I will always find the unmistakable presence of God. And I have sponsees that'll go on walks and you know, I'll be like, invite God with you. And then you tell me where you saw God on your God walk, right? And so that allows me to be present and to be able to watch and see what's coming up. So that is our first direction. We watch. Now, what am I watching for? So it says, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And I'm going to bounce around a little bit. So if we pop over to the top of page 86, when it gives us our directions for our evening review, now goodness, that is in step 11, but we're going to see, it says when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. I know I'm not really talking about step 11, and I'm bouncing around between it, but I want to say constructively, which is not beating ourselves up. I couldn't find a word that wasn't a swear word to fit in there. So we're not beating ourselves up. We're not shaming ourselves constructively. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Hey, isn't that what I'm watching for here? I'm watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So what I learn is that I'm watching for those exact same things. And ideally, what I want to do is I want to deal with them in the moment. I want to watch, I want to see them, and I want to catch them. Because I don't want to live with a pebble in my shoe all day. I don't want to live with that fear and that resentment and that selfishness and self-centeredness that I lived my life with all day. But I am human and I will miss them. And then what happens for me is I get to sit down and do my evening review and I get to catch it. And so what I've learned is honestly, these directions and these steps, they're alcoholic proof. You know, they gotta be. So I don't have to be perfect. And gosh, if I'm stuck in perfectionism, I'm probably stuck in some selfishness and fear. Don't you know? I don't know why I got a Midwestern accent right there. But I'm probably stuck in resentment and fear. And that's something I can clean up right away, but I don't got to be perfect. I just got to be willing to watch and to seek for God in all that I do. And so if I miss it and I come to my evening review and I'm like, oh yeah, I was resentful about Paige randomly having a Midwestern accent. I don't know why I did that. But you can write it through the columns. You can take it through the columns. If we don't do a step 10 in this moment, we can do it, take care of it in the evening review process. And goodness, I am not a perfect person. I miss things. And there are times, and I do an evening review every single night. And so what happens for me is they still miss things because I'm not perfect. And every once in a while, sometimes it's an annual or even a semi-annual, like I regularly do a 4 through 9 process where I clean that stuff up. Again, I'm not meant to be perfect. I'm meant to grow. And how I grow is seeing my mistakes and converting them into assets that I can use to help others. And misquoting page 124 of our book. Because when I turn to God and all these things, man, the worst things about me get converted into blessings that I can use to help another human being. And it's incredible. So it says, I'm watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So that is my first direction. I watch for this. And it says when, not if, when these crop up. Man, I was kind of hoping it would be an if, and I could just skate around on, those old actions that I was taking, the crock pot it. Nope. When these crop up, we ask. And so anytime in this book, it says we ask, that is a prayer. So our second direction is to pray. We ask God at once to remove them. And that's what I do. Because I don't know about you, but I found time and time again, I can't overcome self with self. I found that in step 3, that I could not overcome selfishness and self-centeredness on my own power. I couldn't overcome the resentments on my own power. I could not overcome fear on my own power. I could not be that person that I wanted to be in my sex conduct on my own power. I had to have God's help. So that is why I turn to that power, which is God. So I watch and then I pray. And I want you to know my experience. So my experience, again, you might gather that I'm a little unfocused. And so what happens for me is if I pray and it's gone, I get distracted by something else. If it's gone, I get distracted by something else and I'm off doing that, But if it lingers with me, I say the prayer and it's still there. And I know in my heart when it's still there. See, I often want to minimize. I often want to be like, it's not a resentment. It's just a little frustration. I don't know if you guys have checked out the 4 Horsemen and A Vision for You. Terror, bewilderment, frustration and despair. Oh no. So I got to deal with it, right? And so the next direction is we discuss them with someone immediately. And what a blessing to live in the time that we do with the technology that we do. Because we are so situated that somebody is always available to discuss them with. And one of the things that can be helpful is, sometimes we're in a situation where we text it to somebody. I don't know. I think that's okay. Of course, maybe a phone call is always better, but I really believe a text is better than nothing. And one of the things I'll suggest with my sponsees is just give me a voice memo. That way you're talking it out and I'm getting it and I can listen to it and respond back exactly when. But those of us who have either been the venters of our problems or the recipients of venting know that we don't really feel much better after. See, if I'm just telling you, listen, I am real resentful about this situation and here's why they're a jerk and here's why I hate them. Okay, thanks, bye. There's no solution in that. So when I'm discussing these things with others, when I'm voice memoing or texting, what I've got to do is I've got to talk it or text it through the columns. So those tools that I learned in step 4 and that I practice again in the evening review, I'm not throwing them out. I'm continuing to practice them. So when I call my friends for step 10, what we do is we talk it through the columns. I'll say, I'm resentful at so-and-so, and here's why. Here's what it affects. And sometimes I'll even say the prayer with them, and okay, here's where I was at fault. And they'll point out other ways where I was at fault. A solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. And so one of the things is, I know that, I thought watching was hard. Discussing it with someone is also hard. I know, I'm self-centered, and I don't mean I'm self-centered as I am so great. You all want to hear my inventory and my insights on myself. No, I'm self-centered in the fact that I think I know that I'm a burden to you. I think I know that if I call you, you're going to be, oh, Paige again. Oh, Paige again with the same problem. Oh, I shouldn't reach out. So one, I want you to know anytime you can reach out to me anytime. If I can't take your call, send it as a text or a voice memo. I will respond. I have a high tolerance. So you can't say we don't have anyone to take our 10 steps to. You got me. I'll do it. And I got some sponsees. I'll throw them under the service bus too. They will also take, they don't know this, but they will also take your 10 steps. But also it's important for me to have that community. And, where I live in the world, sometimes they're called pillars. Those people, not just my sponsor, because I'm too afraid to reach out to a single person all the time because I get worried about what you think and I worry that I'm a burden, and I do that. So to have those people that I can regularly go to. Now, again, they're not just anyone in 12 step. They are people who have recovered. They are people who are working this way of life. They are people who are doing this inventory process and who are willing to tell me the truth about myself and willing to let me know, hey girl, yeah, you are full of self today. Selfishness and self-centeredness, that's the root of your troubles, because that's what I need, and that's where the freedom comes. And I know that is hard, but little by slowly connecting and reaching with people who are on the spiritual path, who are in the fellowship of the Spirit, we develop that fellowship, and we're able to show up and connect with each other and have people to take it to. So again, if you're like, man, I don't want to be a burden to my sponsor, I don't have a sponsor, I don't have anyone, you can take it to me, but I'll let you know, we absolutely will always be taking it through the columns. So if we got a resentment, we're going through the resentment columns. If we got a fear, we're going through the fear columns. If we've got selfishness, we're going to talk about that and talk about how we can lean into God's power. If we have dishonesty, got some bad news. We might want to look at practicing honesty, right? With God's help, not on our own, right? And so we do that. We discuss it with someone immediately. And it says, now this is the next direction. Direction number 4, make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. That quick amends, that is key. Like I had a situation in my home group where this was maybe not a long time ago, but this was a while ago, where I had a situation and I yelled, and then right afterwards, here was my immediate thought after I yelled. I've got to kill myself and never go back to my home group, in that order. And you might think that's a little bit dramatic. And if that's your experience, what's it like to be so well balanced? I got to do a lot of effort to not be there. But those were my thoughts. And I also want to point out that was the order. It was not go to my home group and then kill myself. No. Kill myself and never go back to my home group. And, just like a well-adjusted LP. And I'm talking about something that happened like a year or so ago. Like this isn't like early sobriety Paige, you know what I mean? And so in that moment, I knew what I had to do. And I got on the phone and I called to make that direct amends. Say how I spoke was wrong, right? And to really go through that amends process. And I want you to know, if I had not done that, it would have lingered, it would have festered, I would have started doing, and I'm sure you wonderful people would never do this, but I do this, where I start to justify and I start to rationalize, and I start to, oh yeah, but he had it coming. He might have, but that's none of my business. That's not mine to do. I got to clean up my mistakes. I got to clean up my wrongs, right? I just started thinking of that musical where it's like, he had it coming. We got to make like a musical where it's like, and then we made an amends, I'm not good at music. Again, you can tell I'm all over the place. And then it says, and this is the 5th direction in step 10, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. And there's a number of ways to do that. One is to, we say a prayer, we focus on who's next in front of us. And often when I'm confused about what God's will is for somebody like me, it's helping who's in front of me, being of love and service to that person, that human being who is in front of me. That's it. But one of my most favorite ways to turn my thoughts to someone I can help is to reach out to people and let them know that the world's a better place because they're in it, to let them know that they're God's favorite, So I call it pumping their tires. Let them know, man, I am so grateful I saw you at the meeting. I always love what you share. Or, man, I know you've been having a hard time. I'm thinking about you. And I just want you to know that I can see the effort that you're putting in. I can see how hard that is. And I think your courage is incredible, even if it doesn't feel like it. That is one of my most favorite ways to turn my thoughts to someone I can help. And I want you to know, if you ever receive some of those messages, it's not always just because I caught a resentment or a fear or something. Sometimes I just like doing it, and it is incredible how, when I've done that, God has shown up. There have been so many times I've reached out and said, hey, I just wanted you to know that you're loved more than you could ever imagine. Somebody responds with, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that today. Or I reach out to someone and I'm like, hey, you're God's favorite. And they're like, how did you know? How did you know I was having such an awful day? Not how did you know I was God's favorite? Oftentimes they'll be like, you are too. And I'm like, yeah, we are. That's the point. Yeah. And there's been so many times I've seen the power of God working through my willingness to show up and give selflessly in that way. And it's also okay if they don't respond to me. And that's the coolest thing too. It absolutely is. Because I've learned to be able to give without those strings attached, without those tendrils, without those expectations. I want you to know that you're loved because you are loved, not because I need that attention that I don't have, but not because I need that attention or that value or that worth. And then it says, love and tolerance of others is our code. That is our code. That is the way in which we are meant to act in the world in all areas. Now, again, that's not easy. I don't know. I don't drive, so maybe I shouldn't make this metaphor, but I don't know what the drivers are like where you live. But over here, they're idiots. But even on the road, even on the highways, even with my family, right? Even with my loved ones. Love and tolerance of others is our code. And I need God to take me there because I know that I can't on my own. But when I'm there, when I'm in that place of, man, I love you and I can see the presence of God within you, that is freedom beyond anything I could have ever imagined. See, I came to 12-step because I couldn't stop drinking and using other drugs. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't stop. And even when I did for a bit, I just wanted to kill myself. I came here and I thought maybe you guys had something. I didn't know that I could feel one with the universe. I didn't know that I could see the presence of God within you. I didn't know that bondage of self, that selfishness, that self-centeredness, that stuff within me that separates me from you could fall away and I could be one. I didn't know that could happen. From something as simple as these actions, and love and tolerance of others is our code. And then what we get into is the step 10 promises. Again, step 9, we love those. Although oftentimes people that know me will be like, I'm like, ew, the step 9 promises, they suck. And I don't mean that. I just say that to get a reaction, to be like, there's other ones, get people like curious. The step 9 promises do not suck. They're wonderful. They are incredible. But when I'm new, when I'm struggling, or if you're working with somebody who's in and out and relapsing and they don't know if this thing could work, man, the step 10 promises, it's where it's at, right? And it says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. I don't know if you guys remember, but in step 3, it spoke about the delusion that I could rest with the W, rest, satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only I manage well. I am taking by force satisfaction and happiness, and I'm showing up and I think I've got to win against my alcoholism. I think I got to win against this illness. I've ceased fighting and let go. I can rest with an R. I have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. And it says, for by this time, sanity will have returned. See, what is the most insane thing for me as an alcoholic to do is to take that first drink. That is the insanity, that mental obsession, that insane thought that tells me this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll go out for 6 drinks. I'll get it together on Monday. If you went through what I went through, you drink too. That insane thought that I had when I was sober as I am today, that is gone. Sanity has returned. That is sanity. Oh, awesome. I'm also going to be a jerk, and we're in like a second or two. We're going to pop over to page 24. I'm so sorry, Brett. Brett, I should have prepped you. I bounce around. And it says, we will seldom be interested in liquor, right? Sanity is returned. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. Now, if you bear with me, if we pop over to page 24, I'm so sorry, Brett. If we pop over to page 24, it talks about, I'll start with the italics to give you some room. It says, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. See, if I have this mental obsession, I do not have the ability to choose whether I will drink or not. Because if I had the ability to choose whether I would drink or not, I wouldn't. Just like I don't choose to stab myself in the face or poke my eye out. I don't, it's not a choice. God, why would I ever do that? I do not have the power to choose whether I will drink or not. Because of all the pain and all the suffering and all the horror that had caused me and my loved ones and those around me, I drank again. I've lost the power of choice. That is what I'm up against with this illness. So it says our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. That's telling me I can't think of the consequences. That's telling me on my own power, playing the tape to the end will not work. Inevitably, I will take another drink. And then it says the almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. What we're talking about here is that mental obsession, and it is more powerful than me. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted. That means replace with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. This time will be different. I'll only go out for 3 drinks. Nobody will ever know. This time I'll drink like a lady. Never in my life have I drank like a lady. See, well, I was talking about how playing the tape to the end doesn't work. See, I try to play the tape to the end. I think I'm going to end up in a red sequin, evening gown. Now, those that know me are like, girl, when? Absolutely not. Not even in sobriety, but a red evening sequin gown. And I'm on a piano, like I'm sitting upon a piano. And there's like a chandelier and a candelabra. And I've got one of those really long cigarette holders. Ooh, that are just classy as all get out. And I've got a glass of champagne or maybe like a Chardonnay, like, ooh, fancy. That's not the reality. The reality is I'm absolutely blackout drunk, pissing my pants behind a dumpster, smoking crack with the gentleman I just met. Now, I know why you call him a gentleman. I just met him. I shouldn't pass judgment, right? That is the reality. But in that moment, I can't see it. And it says there is the complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on the hot stove. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time, so here's how. Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the 3rd or 4th, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, for God's sake, how did I ever get started again? Only to have that thought supplanted, replaced, right? By, well, I'll stop with the 6th drink. That's not me. Or what's the use anyhow? That's me. I'm a what's the use anyhow sort of drinker, right? And so what happens is at step 1, I can't stop myself from touching the hot stove. I think this time will be different. I think the stove, it was electric, but now it's a gas stove. It'll be different. I can touch it. I start thinking the stove was hot in Canada, but if I go over to Sweden, the stove can't be hot in Sweden. I start thinking, if you went through what I went through, you'd have to touch the hot stove too. I'll only touch it a little bit. I won't touch it all the way. And I can't think through that. And I touch it and I touch it and I touch it and I touch it and I touch it. But going back to the step 10 promises, if tempted, we recoil. We recoil as from a hot flame. I know it's hot. I don't need to touch it. I don't touch it. That's incredible. And it says we react sanely and normally, right? I'm not touching the hot stove. I'm not taking that first drink. And it says And we will find that this has happened automatically. See, I didn't will this to happen. I took these surrendered actions. Let's be real. I definitely didn't want to take. And the change happened to me. And see, that's what's incredible about this spiritual awakening and about these steps is I take the actions, but the results happen to me. And I know it wasn't me that did it. I received the gift that is on offer. It has happened automatically. And we will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. See, I don't got to watch out for slippery places. And of course, if we're brand new, if we haven't had a spiritual awakening and we're just starting to work the steps, of course, like let's not go hang out at bars and in those early days. But at step 10 and actively working step 10, I don't have to hide it. I'm free. I'm free. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Safe and protected. See, in step 3, I'm making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. And I'm hoping that my will and my life will be cared for, but it's a leap of faith. I don't know. I see that maybe you guys, God has cared for your will and your lives, but I don't know if God can care for me. It's this leap of faith. And that becomes evidence. Safe and protected. I have been cared for. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. And that's the thing. When this book was written, when it's saying that's our experience, they're talking about the first 100, a little more 80 members who did this work and had this experience. But those of us who have followed the directions in this book and continue to have this experience, that is our experience. So it's not yes, it's the first 180 members, but it's also the hundreds and thousands of us who have followed these directions. That is our experience. And see, that's the thing. The more of us who follow these directions, the more of us that follow these directions, the more we have this experience. And the more that these directions become true, the more these promises become true, right? That is our experience. So it says, again, instead the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor we're afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. I got some news, and the news is that is the fine print. See, that's the thing. Like these promises, they do come with fine print, right? Step 9 promises. I got to be at step 9, partway through making my amends and continuing to make my amends. So it's for the step 10 promises to be true in my life, I have to be at the 10th step and actively working the 10th step and continuing to keep in fit spiritual condition. So that's the fine print. And then it says it is easy. It is easy, and goodness it is. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. And I always make the joke, I could use some laurels to rest on. Like I made that earlier in this talk. If you don't know what a laurel is, I sure as heck didn't. If you remember, like in those ancient Olympics, a laurel was like a wreath, right? That would go on their head to symbolize victory. Like it's easy to stop doing this on a daily basis. It's easy to be like, I made a bunch of amends. I'm good. It's easy to be like, I did an inventory, last year. I'm good. It's easy to be like, it's not that bad. I don't got to call anyone about that resentment. I don't got to take it through the columns. It's easy to be like, I'm just a little frustrated. It's easy to back away from the solution that we have here. It's easy to back away from this program of action. I don't know if they're wearing laurels, though. I think they just got some delightful haircuts. I'm not. Well, I'm like, ooh, that's just an intentional, it's like a reverse bowl cut is what those guys have. Sorry, focus, Paige, focus. Anywho, so it's easy to let up and to to let go, right, of this program of action. And I want you to know, for an alcoholic of my type, it is as insane for me to take that first drink as it is insane for me to let up on the spiritual program of action. See, if I do not continue to have and grow my spiritual awakening, I will drink again. That is my step one experience. But it's easy, and we're human, and we're never perfect. And it says we are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe, cunning, baffling, patient, insidious, right? We are not cured of alcoholism. And see, that's the thing. As we go throughout this book, we see recovered, 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 recovered. Recovered does not mean cured. Recovered means in that place of grace, that place of the 10-step promises. There I am recovered. I'm not cured. And it says what we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. I want you to know that's good news and bad news. It's good news and bad news. So what that means is when it's contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition, that means it's not contingent on my spiritual condition. So that means it's not contingent on how I feel. That's the good news. The bad news is it's contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. So it's contingent on what I do regardless of how I feel. That's the bad news. And that daily reprieve, that word reprieve. Now, there's a number of definitions of reprieve, but the one that I love the best, the one that seems the most apt for an alcoholic of my type, is that a reprieve is a stay of execution. So imagine that as an alcoholic, I'm on death row. I am doomed to die an alcoholic death. And a stay would be like, when you see the movies and see the stuff, it's like the governor calls and says, no, don't put the prisoner to death today. So every day, I get a stay of execution. I get freedom from death, but also the living death that I knew in my active alcoholism. I get a stay of my execution, contingent on the actions that I take today. And see, this is a daily program of action. And when I get here, it's a little like, oh, I have to. But it becomes I get to. What action am I willing to take today to live a level of life better than the best day I've ever known today? What action am I willing to take today to live in that harmony, that peace, that fourth dimension of existence today? What action am I willing to take today to be of love and service to the people who have suffered the way that I have suffered, and to have meaning in my life more than anything that I could have imagined today? Am I willing to do that today? See, it's not just don't drink today. Right? In the early days, in those first few days, yeah, it is. But that's not going to last for long. It is what action am I willing to take today to experience grace beyond anything I ever imagined? And it says every day. Man, I was hoping I could take Sundays off or something, Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. Right, bringing God into all that I do, channeling God into all that I do. And this is the 10th step prayer. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. So I ought to be praying it throughout the day. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. So when it comes to willpower, I don't have any willpower over that first drink. I will drink again. But where I do have willpower is aligning my will with God's and taking these actions. As you know, for those of us who've done this, it takes willpower to do inventory. It takes willpower to get it done. It takes willpower to show up to that fifth step when we were afraid that we're going to be judged. It takes willpower to make those amends, and especially that amend that we really don't want to make, and he had it coming, right? It takes willpower to do that. It takes willpower to pray on a daily basis, to meditate on a daily basis, to do evening review. It takes willpower to work with others, especially when we don't want to. It takes willpower. So when we push ourselves to take those actions, we align our will with God's. And just a little tip and trick. My experience is it's always easier to continue to do something that I've been doing than to start to do something fresh. So if I start with small, consistent action, building daily, man, momentum takes over, and I'm able to do this thing on a daily basis and live this way of life. So if you're new to this process, if you're new to these actions, my suggestion, what I did was I started small, I worked daily, and I built consistency. And if it can happen for this little drunk, it can happen for any of us. So thank you for the opportunity to be of service and talk about that 10th step. Thank you guys so much.